all of you have been engaged in such a diverse range of work that I thought that it would be interesting for us to have a conversation about what unites us, what motivates us, and how we deal with what has been a historical challenge, the dominant media with an official story that often excludes us. And so, by way of introduction, if each of you could talk about what your main focus is in terms of your media work and what motivates you.
The initial motivation of everything that I do was the violent childhood in which I was raised. I was raised in the South Bronx when it was burning and the homicide capital of the country. I went to schools that were like prisons, and I was silenced. I was not allowed to speak. I actually had a stutter, had a lisp, and this was my childhood. And to speak one's opinion meant to get a beating. So I made a decision at a very early age that I was going to dedicate my life to unbinding the voices, or providing the tools to unbind the voices of others, to help others to create agency. So I started the theater. It is now a multicultural, multimedia theater. We have a great partnership with one of the brother organizations of Manhattan Neighborhood Network, which is Amherst Media, up in Amherst. And we work in a diversity of medias. Amherst Media has opened the doors to us. Our young people are learning all aspects of production and media creation, podcasting. So we're touching as many medias as possible. We have 5 Latino newspapers in Western Massachusetts, 4 of them run by women. So we take advantage of radio, of the newspapers. We take advantage of everything Amherst Media has to offer us. We do productions of issues of concern to the young people with whom we work. If they want to do a play on violence, then they write a play on violence. If they want to do it about STDs, it'll be about STDs. But it's youth-generated and youth-focused. So I'm passionate about this, like I told you before, for the reason that I was silenced. And I decided at a very young age that I would just commit myself so that no one else would suffer what I did, swallowing my feelings, my words, my passion, and my creativity. And I've been able to help to interrupt that from happening to others. And that's why I do it.
I consider myself a lifer as far as the media field, a lifelong media producer, maker, champion, activist. It's what I live and breathe. It's what I am most passionate about. It is my life's work. It will always be my life's work. I think it is also rooted in early experiences. I think I got the lesson really early on around the relationship between representation and reality, and that the power of that relationship. My father is one of the Little Rock Nine, and I grew up with the knowledge of what he and the rest of the Little Rock Nine had done in the civil rights movement, and the relationship of the spotlight and the lens to that experience and to the world's understanding of that experience and of that movement, and how important the representation of that movement was to that reality.
Could you explain what that movement was for people that may not know?
Yeah. Well, that was it was an important sort of chapter in the civil rights movement, and my father was one of 9 African American students that integrated a high school called Central High in Little Rock, Arkansas, in 1957, as part of, and it was a very sort of dramatic kind of moment in the movement where both the governor of the state of Arkansas and the mayor of Little Rock called in the sort of police and troops that were available to them in Arkansas to keep the young African American students that my father was part of out of Central High. And then the president of the United States, Eisenhower, intervened and called in the federal troops to get the kids into the school system. So it was a really kind of dramatic moment and important chapter, and not for nothing was really, there's actually an amazing documentary that just came out called Daisy Bates, First Woman of Little Rock, about, speaking of Women's History Month, about the sort of lead, incredible feminist figure, incredible film, I really recommend it, and was the lead organizer of the Little Rock Nine. And it's not for nothing that she came from a media background and a journalism background and had a paper with her husband, a really powerful paper in Little Rock, and knew how to work it and knew how to work all the journalists and the PR and the television networks and everything, and was really pivotal. And and that's a part of the story that hasn't really come out, and that's why that documentary is so great. There was actually a Black woman behind a lot of these efforts, and she's probably one of the first big PR masters of all time that just knew how to work it and got that story out there, and that had such an effect. So I mean, that for me is one example, but I think all along I've just become really, really clear on the relationship between representation and reality, and our ability to direct that representation to impact reality and impact social change. Currently, I'm the director of the Maisel Cinema, which is a mostly documentary-focused, independent art house cinema in Central Harlem, the first independent movie theater ever north of 96th Street in the borough of Manhattan, which is incredible and speaks to and speaks to geographic bottlenecks and lack of access that have existed for a long time, right? That's incredible that it's taken this long to happen. And I would say this is only one of many. There are many projects in the works. This is an incredible project right here. There are incredible projects happening uptown every day, and the whole media field that's happening in Harlem right now is just so amazing and so incredible. So that's one thing that I'm doing. I'm also co-producing, co-directing a documentary about a graffiti artist, and working on a fiction project about Louis Armstrong State Department tours, and do some media consulting beyond that.
Thank you. Awesome. Elisha.
Wow. Thank you for having me. I guess I wanted to start with, since we are media people, there was a quote on Facebook, and I kind of wanted to start with that because that leads into kind of why I do media. And it was actually, it was a bunch of sisters, we just kind of started saying what a genius this young woman, and it was actually Loya Limbar, and she said, this was in response to the whole Trayvon Martin thing. She said, "I'm so sad about Trayvon Martin, but also wonder if I will live to see the day that our entire community will feel hurt about all the girls and women who are hurt routinely, abused, raped, and killed by men in their lives. When will violence against women truly be seen as a community issue?" And I started to think about what really motivated me to come into media. And it was growing up. I'm from San Francisco. I'm a Puerto Rican that grew up between the Hunters Point and the Mission. And a lot of what I saw was this immigrant going from this primarily African-American community to then this immigrant Latino community to violence in the home as well with my mother, and kind of witnessing that. And then bordering this gentrification that was happening in the Castro in my neighborhood. And I started to see all these intersections, having a mother that was darker and a father that had blonde hair and blue eyes. And I started to think about these intersections very early on.